Hi, welcome back to Let's Survey 11. So, we are on day two of The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So, we are continuing with analyzing poetry and reading, summarizing, analyzing, especially in the poem called The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. So, where we watched a version yesterday, and you should have watched on your own, um, we see a man that is like about to fall asleep or he's napping, and he hears like a tapping on his wall or his door, and he goes and he doesn't see anybody, and he thinks maybe it's his lover who just passed away, Lenore. And then a raven flies into through the window into his house onto the statue of Athena. So it's called Pallas Athena, who is a character in Greek mythology. So during this poem, they kind of go back and forth, and he starts to ask the raven all sorts of questions about Lenore and if he is going to ever see her again, if he's going to leave him. He's been left before. And the phrase that is getting him growingly more frustrated and frustrated is the Raven just continues to keep saying never more to every single question that he asks. And that ultimately is the last line of the poem. So, just to reiterate our characters, we have a narrator who is a man who is sitting alone in mourning in a room when he hears that tapping at the door. And whoops. Then we also have Lenore, who is the woman who has passed away, who is the narrator's lover. The raven, who is only quoted ever saying nevermore. And obviously, not a character, but we see the statue of Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom, war, and handicraft. So I know the poem was a little bit confusing yesterday. So what I'd like to do is to read you now the modern language version, which we are going to continue with for the rest of our time with the poem to kind of make it a little bit more manageable. So I'm going to read these parts to you today. So once when it was midnight and I was sad and tired, I was thinking about old stories I found in the many books surrounding me. I was about to fall asleep, but suddenly there came a tapping, as if someone was gently knocking at my door. I muttered, "It's just a visitor, not a big deal." I remember it well. This happened during a gloomy December as the fireplace was dying out. I wished it was already the next day. I had foolishly hoped. Reading would temporarily stop my madness about my lost love, who was so unique and beautiful that the angels themselves gave her the name Lenore, but she sadly passed away. So we have a character that is our narrator who hears someone knocking at his door. It is midnight in December, and he is talking about this wonderful love he has. And he's saying, well, maybe if I read something, maybe if I read my books, my mind will take me somewhere else. But unfortunately, he can't stop thinking that no, she's no longer there. She passed away. The noise the purple curtains made as they moved filled me with terror I had never felt before. So that now, to calm myself down, I stood up and started repeating, "It's just some visitor hoping to enter my room. Some visitor coming late at night to ask to enter my room. That's all it is. It's nothing to worry about." I became less afraid and stopped hesitating to answer. "Sir," I said, or "Madam, I'm sorry, but I was sleeping. And you knocked so gently, so incredibly quiet at my door, that I wasn't sure I heard you. Then I opened the door, but I didn't see anything or anyone out there." So he opens the door, nobody's there. And we can see that it's December. He's talking about how he is sad, he's depressed, he's missing his love. So, definitely a dark and kind of somber tone so far. I looked at the empty darkness for a long time, feeling terror, doubting reality, dreaming of the impossible. But nothing broke the silence or stillness of the dark emptiness until I finally whispered her name. "Lenore?" I whispered this, and my whisper was echoed back to me. Only this and nothing else. Back into my room I returned, my soul hurting, but then I heard more knocking at my door. Surely, I said, there is something at my window. I'll go see what it is. I will calm myself and discover what is there. Oh, it's just the wind. That is all. So, at first, the narrator thinks this Lenore who has passed away. So he's thinking, like, maybe this noise I'm hearing is actually Lenore. So I want you to keep that in mind. We also see a repeated line that we actually saw in the Telltale Heart where, oh, it's just the wind. And that is also a phrase that he used that the old man described um, what he might have possibly been thinking when there was that noise going on. So we need to keep that in mind too. Definitely about keep that in mind for that mental state that he's in. I opened the window and a raven from the good old times that had passed. He didn't hesitate or delay himself in any way at all. But acting with the arrogance of royalty, he sat above my door, perched on a bust of Pallas Athena, the Greek goddess of wisdom, just above my door, patched and sat and did nothing else. So, the bust of Pallas of Athena, what this means is that it is like a statue that I showed you yesterday, where it's just kind of from a little bit from like the neck up of this Greek goddess of wisdom. So now he opened the door, nobody was there, but now comes flying in a raven. And the raven sits himself on top of the statue that was in his room of Pallas Athena. This blackbird sat there, and it turned my mood from sad to happy because the raven seemed so serious and proper. Though you have short hair, similar to a cowardly knight, I said, you are no coward. Frightening, grim, and ancient raven of the night, what's your name? Tell me on this Plutonian night, the raven said. Nevermore. I also want to bring your attention to this word Plutonian night. So Pluto is also a Greek god. He's kind of usually meant to explain like with the underworld. So we can say that on this Plutonian night, he might kind of be referring to maybe like the underworld or hell or something maybe dark and not great since Lenore has passed away. And now we see for the first time the raven saying, nevermore. I was amazed to hear this bird talk, although the raven didn't really answer my question. I'm sure you'll agree that no one has been lucky enough to have a bird in their room, bird or beast on the sculptured bust above his door, with a name as silly as Nevermore. But the raven, still sitting by himself, only said that one word as if it was all he had to say. He didn't say or do anything else until I said, other friends have visited before. Tomorrow he, the bird, will leave me, as will my hopes, and I will be left alone. Then the bird said, nevermore. I was startled by the bird's response because he just said he was literally never going to leave. Doubtful that he meant it, I said. It probably only knows one word that it learned from an unhappy previous owner who had a disaster after a disaster in his life, until the master was hopeless and sad all day of every day and couldn't say anything but nevermore. But the raven still captured my attention and made me smile. So I moved a comfy chair closer to him. I sat on the velvet chair and started thinking, imagining what his foreboding ancient bird, what his grim, ungainly, frightening, bony, and ominous ancient bird could mean by saying nevermore. Then I started smelling a thick, heavy incense coming from an invisible source, swung by angels who walked across the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, your God has sent angels to help give you rest, rest and a potion to help with the memories of Lenore. Drink of this helpful potion and forget Lenore because she is gone. But then the raven said, nevermore. Fortune teller, I said, thing of evil, fortune teller, bird or devil, sent by Satan or sent by a storm that pushed you here, alone and unshaken to this desert island enchanted, on this home by horror haunted. Tell me honestly, I beg, is there any hope of comfort or peace? Tell me, please, I beg you. The raven said, nevermore. So in these 3 pages, we can see that he is really, really missing Lenore. He keeps talking about the fact that everybody leaves anyway. So if this bird has says that he's never going to leave, he's sure he's going to leave by tomorrow. And then he starts to think, well, maybe if this bird's talking, we learned yesterday that ravens are like parrots, and the fact that they can speak, especially when they're captive or they like live with people. So he's saying, "Oh, this raven's probably just heard this from like a sad person he used to live with." And then he starts to say, maybe God sent them here, or maybe angels, or maybe the devil sent him here. He's sent by Satan. Maybe he's a fortune teller. So we can kind of conclude that he might not have a pretty sane mental state. He might be an unreliable narrator. Um, but he is begging this raven for answers, and the raven simply just says, nevermore to everything he says. And that makes him grow incredibly frustrated. Tell my sad soul if there is a chance that in heaven I will once again hold my true saintly love, Lenore. Touch the unique and beautiful girl named Lenore. The raven said, nevermore. That word is the cause of us parting our ways, bird or fiend, I shrieked, upstarting. Go back to the devil and into the Plutonian nights. Leave no black feather as a reminder of the lies you have told me. Leave my loneliness unbroken. Leave the bust above my door. Take your beak from out of my heart and take yourself away from my door. But the raven said, nevermore. So he checks in with this raven to say, am I going to be reunited with my Lenore? Will I ever hold her again? And he says, nevermore. So he loses his mind and says, like, get out, don't come back, go back to Plutonian, which is a reference to maybe like hell or the underworld. Leave from the bust, so get off of on top of the um, get off from on top of the statue that I have and leave. And the raven, in all of his rage, still says, nevermore. So today you're going to think about this, how we've read, summarized, and analyzed the poem, and you're going to complete your L for the Raven comprehension check. And you have a couple of questions to respond to for me. So have a wonderful rest of your day.